Stop being cheap, not with your money, with your presence, your attention, your standards. You hand them out like spare change and then act surprised when people treat you like pocket lint. You answer instantly, you explain yourself twice, you tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict. You stay available so no one feels uncomfortable, and in doing so, you train the world to see you as common, replaceable, soft. The brutal truth is this: people do not cling to what is easy. They cling to what costs them something to lose, and right now, losing you costs nothing. You were conditioned to believe that being agreeable makes you valuable, that loyalty means enduring anything, that kindness guarantees respect. It doesn't. Power psychology says something colder. Humans calculate. Consciously or not, they measure utility, influence, scarcity. If your absence creates no disruption, you hold no leverage. If you are always there, you are never missed. If you give without boundaries, you are not generous. You are predictable, and predictable men are controlled. Machiavelli understood what most men are too afraid to accept. It is safer to be feared than loved when you cannot be both. Not feared through noise or aggression, but feared through consequence. Feared because your withdrawal shifts the balance. Feared because your silence removes advantage. Feared because your standards cut access without apology. When you become difficult to replace, you become difficult to disrespect. Look at your life with ruthless honesty. If you vanished today, who would scramble? Who would feel their plans weaken? Who would sense instability? If the answer is no one, then you have been living as an accessory in other people's stories. And accessories are swapped when trends change. This is where it ends. Word. Every skill, every connection you word, every skill, every connection you build will increase your weight in the room. Your goal is simple and merciless. Become so competent, so composed, so strategically scarce that your absence creates anxiety. Number 1. Scarcity is power. You have been lied to about value. They told you value comes from being nice, from being available, from proving yourself again and again until someone finally approves. But approval is a leash. The more you chase it, the tighter it pulls around your neck. Scarcity is power. Look at anything the world worships: gold, time, attention, high-level skill. None of it is common. None of it is handed out freely. The moment something becomes abundant, it becomes ignored. The moment you become constantly accessible, you become background noise. You answer every message. You show up to every invite. You tolerate every small disrespect because you don't want to seem difficult. And in doing so, you train people to expect you, not respect you. Expectation without respect is exploitation waiting to happen. Machiavellian philosophy is not about cruelty. It is about control, and control begins with managing access. If people can reach you anytime, they value you less. If people can predict you completely, they respect you less. If people can replace you easily, they fear you not at all. You must become strategically scarce. Not childish, not dramatic, strategic. When you speak less, your words weigh more. When you show up less, your presence shifts the room. When you withdraw attention, people feel the vacuum. This is dark psychology at its simplest. Humans crave what they might lose. Right now, many of you are terrified of losing people. So you overcompensate. You give more. You forgive faster. You tolerate longer. But the one who fears loss the most holds the least power. Power belongs to the one who can walk away and mean it. Scarcity is not about playing games. It is about upgrading your life so completely that access to you becomes a privilege. Start with your time. Time is the ultimate currency. When you give it freely to people who add nothing to your growth, you devalue yourself. High-value men protect their schedule like a fortress, not because they are arrogant, but because they are building something larger than comfort. Start with your attention. Attention is validation, and validation is addictive. When you constantly reassure others, when you always respond instantly, when you always explain yourself, you feed their ego while starving your own authority. Pull that back. Let silence do some of the talking. Let them wonder. Start with your standards. Standards are boundaries with teeth. If someone disrespects you and nothing happens, you just taught them the price of disrespect. 0. But when disrespect costs access, people learn quickly. You must become a man whose absence is felt like winter, cold, uncomfortable, noticeable. This does not mean you isolate yourself. It means you build yourself. Skill, body, network, discipline, emotional control. When you become exceptional at something rare, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer asking to be included. You are being invited because your presence upgrades the room. Think of the most powerful person you know. Do they over-explain? Do they chase approval? Do they beg to be understood? No, they speak clearly. They move deliberately. They do not negotiate their standards to fit into smaller spaces. That is not luck, that is positioning. Machiavelli would tell you this: men are driven by self-interest. Understand this and you stop taking things personally. When you increase your utility, your competence, your strategic value, people align with you. When you decrease it by being overly available and emotionally reactive, they drift. This is not about becoming heartless. It is about becoming untouchable. Untouchable does not mean isolated. It means stable, grounded, composed. A man who does not panic when someone pulls away. A man who does not collapse when ignored. A man who does not beg for clarity because he is clear within himself. The moment people sense you are not desperate for their presence, they begin to recalibrate. The moment they realize losing you would damage their comfort, their status, their advantage, they hold tighter. But here is the warning. Scarcity without substance is manipulation, and manipulation without value collapses. You cannot fake competence. You cannot fake strength long-term. If you withdraw but have nothing to offer, you become irrelevant instead of respected. So build. Build skills that are rare. Build emotional control that is intimidating. Build financial independence that frees your decisions. Build physical discipline that radiates self-respect. When your life is structured around growth, you naturally become less available to nonsense. And that is when the shift happens. People start adjusting to you. They wait longer for your response. They think twice before crossing a line. They feel relief when you show up. That is leverage, not loud dominance, not aggressive posturing, silent psychological weight. You must aim to become so grounded in your own mission that relationships become complements, not necessities. When you need no one to survive emotionally, you negotiate from strength. Let this sink in. The one who needs the least controls the most. Write this in the comments right now. I am the scarcity. Feel how that sounds. Not desperate, not chasing, not begging. Scarcity. From today forward, you do not react instantly. You do not explain yourself twice. You do not stay where you are barely valued. You upgrade your life until your presence becomes an asset, not an assumption. This is how you become so valuable that people fear losing you. And this is only the beginning. Number 2, become necessary, not liked. Being liked is fragile. Being necessary is power. Most men spend their lives chasing affection. They want to be the agreeable one, the reliable one, the good guy who never causes discomfort. But affection shifts with emotion. It rises and falls with mood, trends, convenience. What is loved today can be ignored tomorrow. What is necessary, however, is protected. If you want people to fear losing you, you must move beyond charm. Charm is decoration. Necessity is infrastructure. Machiavellian philosophy teaches a ruthless lesson. People are loyal to what serves their interests, not to what flatters them, not to what entertains them, to what strengthens their position. If your presence increases someone's status, security, or success, they will think twice before risking you. If you are merely pleasant, you are replaceable. Stop trying to be impressive. Start being indispensable. Indispensable is built through competence so sharp it commands silence. It is built when your skills solve problems others cannot, when your thinking cuts through confusion, when your emotional control stabilizes chaos, when your discipline outlasts everyone else's motivation. You want power? Become the man who remains calm when others collapse. In crisis, emotion is loud and useless. The one who controls himself controls the direction of the room. When tension rises and you stay composed, people unconsciously assign you authority. They trust stability. They fear losing stability. This is dark psychology at work. Humans attach themselves to certainty. If you embody certainty, your value multiplies. But here is where most fail. They try to appear strong without becoming strong. They mimic confidence without earning it. They rehearse dominance instead of cultivating depth. That performance eventually cracks, and when it cracks, respect evaporates. Real leverage comes from layered value. Financial value. You are not dependent. Intellectual value. Your insights shift outcomes. Emotional value. Your presence steadies instability. Social value. Your network expands opportunity. When these layers stack, losing you creates a deficit. Think strategically. In every environment you enter, work, friendships, relationships, ask one cold question. What problem do I solve here? If you cannot answer clearly, you are ornamental. Ornamentation is admired, but it is the first thing removed when priorities change. You must train yourself to think like a strategist, not a participant. At work, do not just complete tasks. Understand systems, anticipate weaknesses, become the man who sees what others miss. When you predict problems before they surface, you gain invisible authority. In relationships, do not just provide affection, provide direction, emotional steadiness, standards. Most people are driven by impulse. If you are driven by principle, you become the anchor, and anchors are not easily discarded. But understand this, becoming necessary is not about servitude. It is not about over-functioning so others become lazy. It is about being high-level, elite, rare in your reliability and execution. Machiavelli warned rulers to avoid being despised. Weakness invites contempt. Overgiving invites exploitation. If you constantly overextend to maintain importance, you are not necessary. You are compensating. True necessity is quiet. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself when you step back and the structure shakes. Imagine withdrawing your effort from your current environment for 30 days. Would performance drop? Would confusion increase? Would momentum slow? If the answer is no, you have not yet built weight. That is not an insult, it is a challenge. Become so sharp that your absence forces recalibration. This requires obsession with improvement. The gym is not about vanity, it is about discipline. Reading is not about trivia, it is about strategic advantage. Learning communication is not about manipulation, it is about influence. Influence is the ability to shift decisions without raising your voice. And here is the deeper layer. You must detach emotionally from needing recognition for your value. If you constantly need acknowledgement, you weaken your position. Power often moves in silence. Let results speak. Let outcomes defend you. When you combine scarcity with competence, something changes in the dynamic around you. People begin to test you less. They begin to consult you more. They begin to hesitate before crossing boundaries. Because now, losing you costs something. Write this in the comments. I build value in silence. Feel the shift in that sentence. Silence is not weakness. It is controlled energy. It is potential stored. It is restraint before impact. You are not here to collect approval. You are here to accumulate leverage. And leverage is built when you transform yourself into a strategic asset. So stop asking, do they like me? Start asking, do they benefit from my presence in a way they cannot easily replace? That is colder. That is darker. That is real. When you reach that level, you no longer chase validation. You choose alignment. You no longer fear abandonment. You assess worth. You no longer beg for loyalty. You command it indirectly, through value so undeniable that losing you feels like self-sabotage. This is the evolution from liked to necessary, from available to valuable, from common to critical. And once you become critical, the game changes forever. Number 3. Control perception, control reality. Power does not begin with strength. It begins with perception. The world does not respond to who you are. It responds to who it believes you are. And if you do not consciously shape that belief, others will shape it for you. Smaller, softer, easier to control. Most men live carelessly in how they are perceived. They overshare. They react emotionally. They reveal insecurity disguised as honesty. They speak before thinking. They broadcast weakness and call it authenticity. Then they wonder why no one takes them seriously. Perception is leverage. Machiavelli understood something men today refuse to accept. Appearing powerful is often as important as being powerful, not through deception, but through disciplined self-presentation. If people see you as unstable, they treat you as unstable. If they see you as decisive, they defer. If they see you as scarce, they pursue. Reality bends toward the dominant perception. So ask yourself, what does your presence communicate before you speak? Does it communicate control? Or does it communicate need? Need is visible. It leaks through body language, tone, pace, eye contact. It shows in how quickly you respond, how fast you agree, how desperately you explain. A man who needs approval cannot hide it. And once people sense need, they subconsciously lower his value. Control your pace. Slow speech signals authority. Measured responses signal confidence. Silence signals self-trust. When someone challenges you, do not rush to defend yourself. The one who rushes appears guilty or insecure. Instead, pause. Let the silence stretch. Look them in the eye. Answer only what is necessary, nothing more. The less you over-explain, the more weight your words carry. This is not manipulation, it is composure weaponized. Understand dark psychology at its core. Humans project confidence onto calmness. If you remain steady under pressure, people assume depth. They assume competence. They assume capability, even before proof. And when perception shifts, behavior follows. If people perceive you as high value, they treat you carefully. If they perceive you as emotionally reactive, they test you. If they perceive you as desperate, they control you. Your emotional reactions are broadcasts. Anger without control broadcasts instability. Oversharing broadcasts vulnerability without discernment. Constant joking broadcasts insecurity. Even excessive friendliness can broadcast submission. Cold does not mean cruel, it means regulated. Regulation is power. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain unaffected, you silently communicate, "You cannot move me." That sentence, unspoken, is dominance, because control over yourself is control over the dynamic. You must understand this deeply. People test boundaries instinctively, not because they are evil, but because they are human. They push to measure strength. They withdraw to measure attachment. They challenge to measure confidence. Every reaction you give becomes data. If you chase when they withdraw, you teach them you fear loss. If you explode when challenged, you teach them you lack discipline. If you overshare when silent, you teach them you crave reassurance. But if you remain centered, you become unpredictable in the most dangerous way. Unpredictability combined with stability is lethal in social dynamics. You are calm, but not easily read. Present, but not fully accessible. Engaged, but not dependent. This forces others to invest more attention in understanding you, and attention is currency. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must avoid being despised. Contempt destroys authority faster than hatred. You can recover from being disliked. You cannot recover from being seen as weak. So eliminate behaviors that invite contempt. Stop laughing at disrespect. Stop tolerating small violations. Stop accepting crumbs while pretending they are meals. Correct calmly, not emotionally. Calm correction is terrifying because it shows self-control. When someone crosses a boundary, look at them steadily and address it without raising your voice. Most people expect anger. When they meet composure instead, it unsettles them. Your goal is not to intimidate through aggression. It is to intimidate through steadiness. There is another layer to perception: mystery. When people know everything about you, they lose curiosity. When curiosity dies, intrigue dies. When intrigue dies, perceived value drops. You do not need to narrate your struggles publicly. You do not need to display every achievement. Let people discover layers slowly. When information about you is earned rather than given, it increases perceived depth. Mystery creates gravity. But here is the warning: mystery without substance collapses. You cannot rely on silence alone. You must be building something behind it. Skill, wealth, influence, mastery. When your external composure is backed by internal growth, perception aligns with reality. Control also requires selective visibility. Not everyone deserves access to your plans. Not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Oversharing is often disguised as vulnerability, but in reality, it is poor strategy. Information is leverage. The more people know about your fears, weaknesses, and insecurities, the more potential leverage they hold. Be open with the few who have proven loyalty. Be strategic with the rest. This is not paranoia. It is awareness. The world is competitive. Every room has hierarchies. Every group has dynamics. If you ignore them, you fall to the bottom unconsciously. If you understand them, you position yourself intentionally. Observe before speaking. Measure before committing. Assess before trusting. Silence is intelligence gathering. When you enter a room, do not rush to perform. Watch. Who influences decisions? Who seeks validation? Who dominates conversation but lacks depth? When you speak after observing, your contributions cut deeper because they are calculated. Calculated does not mean fake. It means intentional. Most men live reactively. You must live strategically. Here is the coldest truth: perception compounds. Once people categorize you, it is difficult to escape that box. If you allow yourself to be seen as weak early, you will fight uphill constantly. But if you establish yourself as disciplined, composed, and high value from the beginning, people adapt to that expectation. First impressions are psychological anchors, so raise your baseline permanently. Posture, controlled. Voice, grounded. Eye contact, direct. Responses, precise. When you make a mistake, own it without emotion. No excuses, no defensiveness. Ownership projects strength. Excuses project fragility. When you succeed, remain understated. Excessive celebration projects insecurity. Quiet success projects confidence. Control perception long enough, and perception becomes reality. People begin giving you opportunities because they assume competence. They hesitate before disrespect because they assume standards. They pursue alignment because they assume scarcity. And once that happens, the balance shifts. You are no longer trying to prove yourself. You are no longer reacting to emotional waves. You are shaping the environment through presence alone. That is power. Write this in the comments now. My presence shifts the room. Say it until you feel the weight of it. Because the man who controls his image, controls his reactions, controls his access, controls the outcome more often than not. Become that man, calm under fire, measured in speech, selective in access, strategic in visibility. When you master perception, you stop fighting for respect. You become assumed authority, and once authority is assumed, losing you feels like losing stability. That is when people begin to fear your absence, not because you threaten them, but because your presence has become the standard they rely on. And standards, once set high enough, are expensive to replace. Number 4, detachment is dominance. If you want to become untouchable, you must master detachment, not indifference, not apathy, detachment. The ability to engage without being controlled, to care without clinging, to build without begging. Most men lose power not because they lack strength, but because they are emotionally owned. Owned by validation, owned by fear of abandonment, owned by the need to be chosen, and whoever owns your emotions owns your behavior. Attachment without discipline creates desperation. Desperation destroys leverage. When you are afraid to lose someone, you unconsciously submit to them. You tolerate more. You explain more. You forgive faster. You shrink your standards to maintain proximity. You convince yourself it is loyalty. It is not. It is fear disguised as virtue. And fear leaks. It leaks through tone, through body language, through the speed of your replies. People can sense when you need them more than they need you. And the moment they sense that imbalance, the hierarchy is set. Detachment rebalances the hierarchy. Machiavellian strategy is rooted in this principle. Never allow your survival, emotionally or strategically, to depend entirely on one source. The ruler who depends on one ally becomes vulnerable. The man who depends on one person for happiness becomes controllable. Power requires optionality. Options create calm. Calm creates authority. You must build a life so structured, so mission-focused, that no single relationship becomes your oxygen. When your purpose is larger than your attachments, you negotiate from strength. You do not threaten to leave. You are simply capable of it. And that capability changes everything. Detachment begins internally. It begins when you accept a brutal truth. Anyone can leave. Anyone can betray. Anyone can change. Not because people are evil, but because people are human. If you anchor your emotional stability to something that can shift without your consent, you will live in anxiety. The antidote is self-containment. Self-containment means your identity is not dependent on external approval. Your routine does not collapse because someone withdraws attention. Your focus does not dissolve because someone tests your patience. You feel emotion, but you are not ruled by it. This is masculine stoicism at its sharpest edge. Feel deeply, act deliberately. When someone pulls away and you chase, you communicate scarcity of options. When someone tests your boundary and you panic, you communicate fear of loss. When someone withholds affection and you overcompensate, you communicate dependency. Instead, pause. Silence is often the most powerful response to emotional manipulation. When someone expects you to react and you do not, you disrupt their script. Disruption creates uncertainty, and uncertainty shifts power. But understand this clearly: detachment is not coldness toward everyone. It is controlled investment. You invest where respect is mutual. You withdraw where it is not. You do not beg for reciprocity. You observe it. The man who can walk away without emotional collapse is rare, and rarity commands respect. Imagine two men in the same situation. Both are challenged. Both are tested. One reacts impulsively, arguing, defending, demanding reassurance. The other listens, responds briefly, and if necessary, disengages without drama. Which one appears stronger? Which one feels harder to replace? Detachment communicates abundance. Abundance does not always mean wealth or options in numbers. It means internal security. It means you are not negotiating from fear. It means you can say no without shaking. You can lose without breaking. You can be misunderstood without chasing clarity from those committed to misunderstanding you. Here is the darker truth. People subconsciously respect what they cannot emotionally control. If they know your mood depends on them, they will test it. If they know your self-worth is stable, regardless of their behavior, they recalibrate. Detachment also protects your long-term strategy. Emotion makes you reactive. Reaction makes you predictable. Predictability makes you controllable. But when you process emotion privately and act strategically, you remain unreadable. And unreadable men are difficult to manipulate. Control your impulses. Do not send the emotional message. Do not make the impulsive call. Do not issue the dramatic ultimatum. Time is your ally. Most emotional storms weaken when ignored. Most conflicts shrink when not fed. Patience is not weakness, it is tactical delay. You must train yourself to observe your own emotional surges like an outsider. When anger rises, notice it without obeying it. When jealousy appears, Analyze it without confessing it impulsively. When fear of loss surfaces, ask yourself, am I reacting from strength or insecurity? Strength waits, insecurity lunges. Detachment also forces you to develop depth. When you stop relying on constant external stimulation, validation, attention, reassurance, you are forced to confront yourself, your goals, your discipline, your emptiness. Many men avoid detachment because silence exposes their lack of purpose, but that exposure is necessary. Build a mission that excites you more than approval. Build a routine that grounds you more than attention. Build standards that guide you more than emotion. When your life is full, you stop clinging, and when you stop clinging, you become magnetic. There is a paradox here. The less you need to be chosen, the more you are chosen. The less you fear loss, the less people risk losing you. Because confidence without attachment feels powerful. It feels stable. It feels safe. But detachment must be balanced with integrity. You do not withdraw to punish. You withdraw to protect your value. You do not become distant to manipulate. You become selective to maintain standards. The difference is intention. Your intention is self-respect. When someone disrespects you, you address it once, calmly. If it continues, you reduce access, not dramatically, quietly. Access is earned and maintained through respect. That is the rule. And rules create structure. Structure creates predictability. Predictability, in your standards, not your reactions, creates authority. You are not volatile. You are consistent. You are not emotionally chaotic. You are emotionally disciplined. That consistency builds psychological safety for others, but it also builds fear of crossing you, because they know you will not explode. You will simply adjust your level of access. Adjustment is more terrifying than anger. Anger burns hot and fades. Adjustment is permanent. Write this in the comments now. I am in control of my emotions. Say it until it becomes your operating system. Because once you master detachment, you stop negotiating from weakness. You stop begging for space in rooms where you should be centered. You stop fearing silence. You stop fearing loss. Loss becomes data. Rejection becomes redirection. Distance becomes clarity, and clarity is power. When you reach this level, people feel it. They sense that you are grounded in something deeper than their approval. They sense that you are not easily shaken. They sense that losing you would mean losing a man who does not crumble. And men who do not crumble are not easy to replace. That is dominance without shouting, authority without aggression, power without performance. Detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of it. Master it, and you become untouchable. Number 5. Discipline is your weapon. If detachment is dominance, discipline is the weapon that sustains it. Without discipline, everything you've heard so far collapses into performance. You cannot fake scarcity if your habits are weak. You cannot project control if your impulses rule you. You cannot become necessary if you lack the consistency to deliver under pressure. Discipline is the silent architecture behind power. It is the difference between a man who talks about standards and a man who enforces them through action. Most men fail here, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack potential. They fail because they negotiate with themselves daily. They wake up and debate whether to train. They hesitate before doing difficult work. They delay what builds them and indulge what weakens them. And every time they break a promise to themselves, something invisible fractures. Self-trust. Self-trust is the core of authority. If you do not trust yourself to follow through, you will overcompensate externally. You will seek validation to fill the gap. You will talk more than you execute. You will posture instead of produce. Discipline eliminates that weakness. When you train your body consistently, even when you do not feel like it, you send yourself a message. I do what I decide. That message builds internal dominance. When you wake up early to work on your goals while others sleep, you reinforce identity. When you control your diet, your consumption, your distractions, you prove to yourself that comfort does not own you. and a man who is not owned by comfort cannot be easily owned by people. Machiavellian thinking is rooted in preparation. A ruler who waits for crisis to build strength loses. A man who waits for heartbreak to build resilience is already behind. Discipline is proactive power. It builds you before the test arrives. The gym is not about aesthetics. It is about voluntary hardship. It is about walking into discomfort and staying. It is about teaching your nervous system that stress does not break you. When your body is trained to endure pressure, your mind follows. Physical discipline sharpens psychological resilience. The same applies to skill. Choose something valuable. Master it relentlessly, not casually, not when it is convenient, relentlessly. Competence built through discipline creates independence. Independence creates leverage. Leverage creates respect. Imagine two men in the same room. One speaks about ambition, the other lives it daily. The first one needs to be heard, the second one does not. His results speak quietly but forcefully. Which one do people instinctively gravitate toward? Which one feels harder to replace? Results silence doubt. Discipline also refines your emotional control. When you practice restraint in small areas, resisting impulses, delaying gratification, maintaining routine, you strengthen the same muscle required to stay calm in conflict. Emotional explosions are often the result of undisciplined living. When your life lacks structure, your emotions lack containment. Structure creates stability. Wake at the same time, train at the same time, work on your craft at the same time. Limit distractions intentionally. When your day has order, your mind has clarity, and clarity reduces emotional chaos. This is where masculine stoicism becomes practical. Stoicism is not suppressing emotion. It is prioritizing action over impulse. It is understanding that feelings fluctuate, but standards remain. Discipline keeps your standards intact when motivation disappears. And motivation will disappear. There will be days you feel ignored, disrespected, unseen. On those days, weak men spiral. They seek attention. They react. They attempt to regain control externally. Disciplined men return to routine. They lift heavier. They read longer. They build harder. They channel frustration into growth. That is the shift. Instead of demanding respect, you earn it through visible consistency. Instead of proving your worth verbally, you demonstrate it physically and strategically. Over time, your reputation solidifies. People know you as steady, focused, reliable, controlled. Reputation is long-term power, and reputation is built on disciplined behavior repeated daily. Write this in the comments. Discipline is my advantage. Feel the weight of that, because while others chase shortcuts, you will build foundations. While others react emotionally, you will respond strategically. While others negotiate with weakness, you will execute regardless of mood. Discipline also protects you from self-sabotage. When opportunities arise, only the prepared can seize them confidently. Without preparation, opportunity creates anxiety. With preparation, opportunity creates expansion. You want people to fear losing you. Become the most disciplined man in your environment, the one who shows up early, the one who leaves last, the one who improves quietly while others complain loudly. There is something intimidating about a man who cannot be distracted from his mission, a man who does not fold under temptation, a man who says little and produces much. That intimidation is not loud, it is subtle, but it is real. Because discipline signals depth, depth signals strength, and strength signals value. When your habits are sharp, your posture changes. Your eye contact strengthens, your speech slows. You do not rush because you are not behind. You do not chase because you are building. You do not panic because you are prepared. Preparation eliminates desperation, and desperation is the enemy of power. So sharpen your routines, harden your body, expand your skill, tighten your focus, remove distractions, reduce indulgences, increase output, not to impress, to fortify. Because once discipline becomes your identity, you stop trying to appear valuable. You become undeniably valuable. And once that happens, losing you stops being convenient. It becomes costly. Number 6, enforce standards without emotion. You can build discipline. You can master detachment. You can sharpen perception. But if you do not enforce standards, all of it collapses the moment someone tests you, and they will test you. Not always openly, sometimes subtly. A late reply after disrespect, a joke that crosses the line, a favor asked without reciprocity, a boundary ignored just slightly to see what you tolerate. What you tolerate becomes your identity, teaches people how far they can go. Every teaches people how far they can go. Every unaddressed disrespect lowers your perceived value, not because others are cruel, but because humans instinctively calibrate to the boundaries presented. Standards are not what you say, they are what you enforce. Machiavellian psychology is brutally clear on this. If consequences are inconsistent, authority weakens. If you react emotionally one day and ignore behavior the next, you become unpredictable in weakness, not strength. People cannot take you seriously if your reactions depend on mood. So remove emotion from enforcement. When someone crosses a line, you do not explode. You do not rant. You do not attempt to wound them back. You respond calmly, directly, and briefly. You state the boundary once. No essays, no justifications, no pleading to be understood. Calm enforcement is terrifying because it signals control. If the behavior continues, you adjust access, less time, less attention, less energy. You do not announce it dramatically, you simply redirect your focus. This is the part most men fail at. They threaten consequences, but never follow through. Empty threats invite contempt. Quiet action commands respect. You must understand something cold. People respect strength more than they respect kindness without backbone. You can be kind. You can be generous. But if your generosity is unconditional, it becomes exploitable. Conditional generosity, based on mutual respect, becomes power. This does not mean you are rigid or paranoid. It means your time and presence are assets. Assets are protected. Look at your current life and ask yourself honestly, where are you allowing behavior that contradicts your self-respect? Where are you laughing at comments that irritate you? Where are you accepting treatment you would not advise your younger self to accept? That gap between what you know and what you allow is where your power leaks. Close the gap. Masculine stoicism is not passive endurance. It is composed action. If a colleague undermines you publicly, you address it privately with clarity. If a friend repeatedly disrespects your time, you reduce availability. If a partner tests your boundaries through inconsistency, you do not chase clarity. You observe patterns and respond accordingly. Patterns reveal truth. Words distract from it. Enforcing standards also requires internal alignment. If you demand punctuality but arrive late yourself, you lose credibility. If you demand loyalty but entertain disloyal behavior when convenient, you weaken your frame. Hypocrisy is detected quickly. And once detected, authority erodes. Live by the standards you expect. Break promises to yourself. You break promises to yourself. You subconsciously accept lower treatment from others. But when you are aligned, when your habits reflect self-control, you naturally project firmness. There is another layer to this. Emotional neutrality during enforcement forces others to confront their behavior without distraction. Anger allows them to focus on your tone instead of their action. Calmness removes that escape. Imagine someone attempts to belittle you in front of others. Instead of reacting defensively, you look at them steadily and say, if you have something to say it directly. No raised voice, no smile, just clarity. The room shifts because composure under pressure exposes insecurity in others. That is dominance without aggression. Understand that enforcing standards will cost you some people. Weak connections fall away when access becomes conditional. That is not loss. That is filtration. The goal is not to be universally accepted. The goal is to be selectively respected. Write this in the comments now. My standards are non-negotiable. Feel the weight of that commitment. Because once you internalize it, you stop explaining your boundaries. You stop arguing for basic respect. You stop debating your value with people who benefit from you doubting it. Here is the final truth. Fear of losing people is what prevents enforcement. You worry that if you correct behavior, they will leave. But if someone leaves because you demanded respect, they were never aligned with you. They were benefiting from your tolerance. Enforcement filters opportunists, and filtered environments become powerful environments. When people know you will calmly withdraw from disrespect, they think before crossing you. When they know you are consistent in response, they test you less. When they see you detach instead of chase, they recalibrate their behavior. Consistency creates psychological gravity. You do not need to threaten. You do not need to intimidate. You do not need to dominate loudly. You simply need to mean what you demonstrate. And when your actions consistently reinforce your standards, your presence becomes structured, predictable in strength, unpredictable in tolerance, controlled in reaction. That combination creates something rare. A man who is fair but firm, calm but unmovable, present but not permissive. And that kind of man is not easy to replace, because he does not beg to be valued, he requires it. Number 7. Build a life that outgrows them. If you truly want people to fear losing you, you must construct a life that does not revolve around them. Most men shrink their ambition to maintain comfort. They reduce their intensity to avoid intimidation. They dim their focus so others feel secure, and in doing so, they trade long-term power for short-term acceptance. You must do the opposite. Your life must become so expansive, so disciplined, so purpose-driven that anyone connected to you understands one thing clearly. You are moving forward with or without them. That realization changes dynamics permanently. When your growth accelerates, two things happen. The right people rise to match your level. The wrong people feel threatened. Both outcomes are useful. Growth reveals alignment. Stagnation hides it. Machiavellian strategy is rooted in positioning. A ruler expands territory not only for wealth, but for leverage. You must expand your territory, intellectually, financially, physically, socially, not to boast, not to compete, to increase optionality. Optionality is power. When you have options, you are calm. When you are calm, you are difficult to pressure. When you are difficult to pressure, you are difficult to control. Too many men live in emotional cages built by limited exposure. Small circles, small income, small ambitions. When your world is small, every relationship feels critical. Every conflict feels catastrophic. Every withdrawal feels like devastation. Expand your world and watch your emotional dependence shrink. Travel if you can. Network beyond your current circle. Learn skills that increase your earning power. Read material that challenges your thinking. Train your body beyond average. When you are constantly upgrading, your identity shifts from reactive to progressive. Progressive men are magnetic because progress signals movement, and movement signals strength. But here is the darker layer. When people see you evolving rapidly, they instinctively calculate their position in your future. Some will step up, others will cling. A few will attempt to sabotage subtly, discouraging your ambition, questioning your focus, downplaying your wins. Not because they hate you, but because your growth exposes their stagnation. You must recognize this pattern without resentment. Do not argue. Do not defend your ambition. Simply continue. The more you explain your mission, the more you invite unnecessary commentary. Silence protects momentum. Let results speak later. When your schedule is structured around development, you naturally become less available for trivial drama. When your goals demand discipline, you have less tolerance for emotional chaos. When your standards rise, low-level energy becomes exhausting. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. Alignment means your daily actions support your long-term vision. If someone consistently disrupts that alignment, you do not need confrontation, you need distance. Distance is clarity. As your life expands, you must also refine your inner circle. Not everyone deserves front-row access to your evolution. Some people are seasonal, some are transactional, a rare few are foundational. Machiavelli warned leaders about misplaced trust. Trust must be tested over time, not granted based on emotion. The same applies to you. Loyalty is proven in pressure. Support is proven during your climb, not just your comfort. Observe who celebrates your growth without insecurity. Observe who encourages your discipline without mockery. Observe who respects your boundaries without resistance. Those are assets. Assets are protected and reciprocated. But even with allies, your core must remain self-contained. Never build your entire emotional foundation on one person, one group, one opportunity. Diversify your investments in skills, relationships, income streams, environments. Diversification reduces vulnerability. Vulnerability without strategy invites instability. When your life becomes dynamic and multidimensional, you stop clinging to any single pillar. If one collapses, the structure remains. That resilience is visible, and visible resilience commands respect. Here is another uncomfortable truth. Some people only value you when they sense competition for your attention. When you are stagnant and fully available, you are predictable. When your time becomes scarce because you are building, curiosity increases. Scarcity without progress is manipulation. Scarcity with progress is evolution. The key difference is authenticity. You are not pretending to be busy. You are busy building. You are not ignoring people to create desire. You are focused on expansion. Expansion forces recalibration. When your confidence increases because your competence increases, your posture changes, your tone deepens, your decisions sharpen. You stop asking for permission to pursue your vision, and that is when people begin to fear losing you. Not because you threaten departure, but because your trajectory suggests you will outgrow environments that cannot keep up. Outgrowing is not betrayal, it is growth. Many men sabotage themselves by shrinking to preserve comfort. They remain in circles that limit them. They downplay ambition to avoid jealousy. They remain average to maintain approval. That is weakness disguised as humility. True humility is quiet excellence. Build so relentlessly that your environment must either elevate or release you. Financial growth is critical here. Money is not everything, but dependency is dangerous. If your survival depends entirely on someone else's approval, your leverage is gone. Increase your financial intelligence. Increase your earning capacity. Build savings. Create options. Options reduce fear. Fear reduction increases composure. Composure increases power. Physical growth matters as well. Train your body beyond aesthetics. Strength builds confidence rooted in biology. When you feel strong physically, you move differently. You occupy space differently. That presence affects perception before you speak. Intellectual growth sharpens strategy. Study psychology. Study negotiation. Study history. Study influence. The more you understand human patterns, the less you are surprised by behavior. Surprise weakens reaction. Awareness strengthens response. Social growth expands leverage. Build connections across industries, across mindsets, across levels of success. When your network expands, your opportunities multiply. When your opportunities multiply, your desperation declines. And desperation is the enemy of power. As you expand, you will feel loneliness at times. Growth isolates before it attracts. You will outpace old habits. You will detach from conversations that once entertained you. You will lose alignment with certain people. That is the cost of evolution. Pay it, because stagnation costs more in the long run. Write this in the comments now. Let that be your identity. When you internalize that mindset, rejection becomes redirection. Distance becomes fuel. Criticism becomes data. You stop interpreting obstacles as personal attacks and start interpreting them as filters. Filters reveal who belongs in your future. The ultimate goal is not to make people fear you emotionally. It is to make them recognize your upward momentum. When someone sees that your path is accelerating, they instinctively understand that losing access to you may mean losing proximity to growth, opportunity, strength. Proximity to excellence is valuable. So become excellent. Not theatrically, not occasionally, consistently. Wake up earlier, train harder, learn faster, execute longer, speak less, deliver more. When your life becomes an upward trajectory, you stop chasing validation. Validation begins chasing you. When your schedule is filled with progress, you stop obsessing over who texted back. When your bank account grows, you stop tolerating disrespect tied to financial dependency. When your body transforms, your posture alone shifts dynamics. This is how you become untouchable, not through isolation, but through elevation. Elevation changes perspective. From higher ground, you see patterns others miss. You see who aligns and who drains. You see which environments fuel you and which suffocate you. And once you see clearly, you choose accordingly. Choice is power. The man with choices negotiates differently. He loves differently. He works differently. He walks differently. He is not aggressive. He is assured. Assurance is intimidating because it cannot be shaken easily. When people sense that your life is expanding regardless of their involvement, they feel urgency, not because you demand it, because momentum creates gravity, and gravity pulls alignment toward it. Your task is simple and ruthless. Build until your absence would be a downgrade in any room you enter. Build until your skill is hard to replicate. Build until your composure is rare. Build until your discipline is intimidating. Build until your standards filter automatically. Then watch what happens. You will no longer fear being left behind. Others will fear being left behind by you. And that is the shift from chasing inclusion to being the standard of inclusion. From fearing loss to embodying value. From seeking importance to being impossible to ignore. Keep building. Do not slow down, because the man who outgrows his limitations becomes the man others cannot afford to lose. Number 8. Become unpredictable in strength. At this stage, you are no longer building just to improve. You are building to transform your psychological impact. And to do that completely, you must become unpredictable, not in instability, but in strength. Predictable weakness is easy to manage. Predictable compliance is easy to exploit. But controlled unpredictability forces respect. Most men are easy to read. They react when provoked. They chase when ignored. They fold when pressured. Their emotional patterns are visible within minutes. Once someone understands your pattern, they understand how to move you. You must disrupt that. If you are always available, occasionally be unreachable. If you are always agreeable, calmly disagree when necessary. If you are always calm, show controlled intensity at the right moment. Not randomly, strategically. Unpredictability, when rooted in discipline, creates psychological tension. And tension creates attention. This does not mean mood swings, it means range. You are capable of warmth, but not naive. Capable of kindness, but not soft. Capable of humor, but not foolish. Capable of intensity, but not unstable. Range makes you dangerous. When someone cannot easily categorize you, they tread carefully. When your reactions are measured instead of automatic, people hesitate before testing you. They cannot assume you will chase. They cannot assume you will tolerate. They cannot assume you will explode. They must assess in real time. That assessment gives you advantage. Machiavellian philosophy emphasizes adaptability. The rigid ruler breaks. The adaptable ruler survives. The same applies to you. You must be fluid in tactics, but fixed in standards. Flexible in approach, but immovable in self-respect. Most men choose one extreme. They are either too nice or unnecessarily aggressive, too silent or too reactive, too available or too distant. Extremes are easy to predict. Balance with edge is harder to manage. When you are challenged, sometimes you respond with calm dismissal. Other times, you respond with sharp clarity. The key is intentionality. Your response should match your long-term strategy, not your short-term emotion. This forces others to recalibrate constantly. Here is the darker psychological truth. Humans subconsciously test stability to determine hierarchy. If you respond the same submissive way